I'm Harriet White. I'm the Vice Consul at the Australian Consulate General in Bengaluru. I'll be the moderator for today's panel. Thank you very much for joining us on this session on Australia and Karnataka. Where are we now and what are the opportunities? I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Hilary McGeachy, Australia's first Consul General in Bengaluru. Hilary is a career diplomat with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and has previously been posted to New Delhi and Berlin. We have Michelle Wade with us. Michelle represents the Australian state of Victoria as the Trade and Investment Commissioner for South Asia. Michelle has managed the Victorian government operations across South Asia since 2017. We have Vic Singh with us. Vic is an Australian Trade and Investment Commissioner for South Asia. Vic leads the Australian Trade and Investment Commission education teams across the South Asia region. We have Gaven Standon with us. Gaven is wearing two hats today. He is an executive at Telstra, Australia's largest telecommunications company, and he's also the president of the Indo Australia Chamber of Commerce. And finally, we have Irfan Malik with us. Irfan has travelled all the way from Australia, and he is the National Associate Chair and the President of the New South Wales chapter of the Australia-India Business Council. Thank you very much to all our panellists for joining us today. So we'll get the panel started. Hilary, I'll turn to you first. Australia's Consulate General in Bengaluru is Australia's 5th diplomatic mission in India and the newest. What are the priorities of the Australian Consulate General in Bengaluru?
Is this one working? Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to join us. I had to sweep out the Italian session at the end. I'm very sorry. So if we've cut any conversations short, you can now have them with us. As I say, my name is Hilary. I'm the Australian Consul General here in Bengaluru. My job is a very simple one. It is, and my team's job is a very simple one. It is about increasing the connections between Australia and this part of India, Karnataka and Bengaluru. And that goes in two directions. So what I like to see is more Indian companies going to Australia, investing in Australia, trading with Australia. And I also want to see, of course, Australian companies investing here, establishing here and trading here in Karnataka. So it means that events like this, where the Karnataka government is holding itself out as saying, we are here to help companies, it's a very important undertaking and I take it very seriously. And that's why today we have brought together state, federal, business chambers to give you different perspectives on what it means to enhance trade investment between Australia and Karnataka and more broadly South India. Now we've got a range of speakers, so Harriet, I'm just going to draw a couple of examples that are maybe not the most obvious ones. Vic will talk about education, for example, but in terms of the kind of areas that I see activity happening in, I would point to space. Actually, we have a very healthy space startup sector in Australia, and we found some great collaboration here. This week, there is, of course, Aero India. For the first time, we have brought a number of Australian defence industry businesses, and they are here striking deals and partnerships. We are also seeing a lot more trade and investment overall, but I'm going to save that answer for a little later. I also like to touch on something that drives all aspects of business, and that's people-to-people links. And so at the moment, there is one direct flight to Sydney from Bengaluru. We know for a fact that when people can travel directly, those business ties are strengthened. You can get your senior decision makers in the room more easily. You need that face-to-face engagement. We want to see more tourists to Australia. I also think Karnataka could do more to showcase what it has for tourists. There's some great things here that are a little hard to find. But my overall point on this is one statistic I want to give you, which is 4% of Australia's population is of Indian origin or Indian heritage. So a really significant part of what it means to do business is a diaspora story as well for us. And so we are also looking at how diaspora connections, and that goes both ways, are really enhancing our ties here in this part of India. So that's my introductory piece. Harriet, thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. Turning to you, Michelle, the state of Victoria accounts for around 22% of Australia's economic output, making it the second largest state in Australia. What are the priorities for Victoria's economic engagement in Karnataka, and how have these priorities changed and matured over the past 6 years?
Great. Thanks, Harriet. Well, I've got quite a loud voice on this microphone. First of all, I should say we've believed in Karnataka from the very start, from the Victorian government point of view. We've been here for 20 years. The decision was made 20 years ago, and it's where the majority of the Victorian government offices are. Our other base is in Mumbai. And I think we were a little bit ahead of our time then, probably driven by one of our leading alumni, and the Consul General mentioned the people-to-people links, but that's Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, who actually studied in Victoria, and we're deeply proud of that. On that 22% of the GDP, what I really want you to think about is Victoria is only actually 4% of the landmass of Australia. So we really regard ourselves as a knowledge economy and as a highly productive economy. Where we've seen growth, I mean, it has been incredible for me over the last 7 years. I'm really pleased to be able to tell a story of growth. We've got Gaven with Telstra, so we always had ANZ here in Karnataka, but they were sort of misunderstood, I think, as a call centre. And Australia and Victoria and our large corporations really understand the capability that comes out of Karnataka. We're seeing, so it's those two-way relationships we like to see. One of the ones, or two of the ones I want you to know about, REA Group has a bigger development centre up in Gaven, but they've chosen their specialist staff here in Karnataka. But what is also interesting about them is you might not think that, an Australian, Victorian company owns housing.com. They're your biggest online real estate investor here now. Another project that I really love because it tells a great tale is Rubicon Water. It's a rural project in Karnataka, 800 kilometres of piping, 3,000 remote-controlled gates. A JV where so much of the manufacture's done here by Indian companies in terms of the piping and the labour, but the smart technologies, the analysis of that technology is all done in rural Victoria. Truly successful project, and it's now in its second phase. You might not know that your air quality monitoring here in Karnataka is actually done by a Victorian company too. So I guess what I'm trying to do is open your eyes a little bit, that even though we're a small state, there's quite a lot going on. The people-to-people links, I was very lucky yesterday to have lunch with the founder of S'mores. He's actually from Victoria. He's Fijian Indian and runs his life between here and Melbourne. So in terms of sectors, certainly environmental services, education that Vic will talk about, medtech, AI, those sorts of things are where we're seeing the really great interactions. Growing work, I think, in sports, in tech from Karnataka, also in facilities, high-performance training from us, and we're really interested in the growing opportunity in Karnataka's Tier 2 cities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Gaven, Telstra is Australia's largest telecom, and it employs over 2,000 people in India, and a lot of those are based here in Bengaluru. What does Karnataka offer Telstra, and what can Telstra offer Karnataka?
Good question. So, as I was introduced, I do wear two hats. First one is I'm an executive at Telstra. And as part of Telstra, as you rightly mentioned, Harriet, yes, we have about 2,200 perm employees in our GCC, which is our Global Capability Center. But we also have another 10,000 indirect employees supporting us through our service providers, or what we call system integrators. Coming to the most important question is, why are we in Karnataka and what have we seen in Karnataka? We have not built this capability overnight. We have come here because of two reasons. One is scale, second one is skill. Skill is much more important. And I have this very cliched statement, we came here for cost, but we are staying here for value. And what is that value? It's innovation, it's flexibility, it's domain depth, and very important, time to market. It's not very easy. The last point is not very easy to replicate very easily in any other part of the world. I'm telling you this. Yes, you can do this probably in a Hyderabad, a Pune, or a Mumbai. But take it from me, our experience in Bangalore specifically has been very astounding in terms of its results. Because it's a multi-domain capability that you are exposed to in Bangalore. The domain depth is something that is unmatched, so you have breadth and depth. Last but not the least, it's very sustainable. We did not build this capability overnight. We have been here in Bangalore from early 90s. And incidentally, I don't know how many of you know that the first cell phone call or the mobile call in India was made on a Telstra Modi network in 1994-95. So we've been there from then. Yes, we've got out of that retail business. We are here more on the enterprise business. Coming back to a point about what Australian businesses are doing, it's just not about Telstra. When I look at all the large enterprises, be it the banks, be it the mining techs, be it the fintechs or telcos, we have invested here just not on skill, but also on leadership. So that is the first litmus test for any investment, because that's strategic investment for me. So if I really summarize this, we are here for the long haul. That itself is a commitment for the future, number one. Number two, we are going to go after competitively advantageous technical skills. We call them as CAT skills. These are skills that are going to be for your next gen, which is product engineering, network engineering, software engineering, data engineering, and the underlying factor being artificial intelligence and robotics built over it. So that's what we are into. My commitment is not in terms of scale or monetary investment. My commitment from Telstra is we are deeply invested. We've got a 5G lab that is based out of Bangalore. Not many companies can boast of a 5G lab. And everything that is moved to production in Australia is tested here in India before it is moved to production. So you can clearly see the importance. So it's just not about having bodies do work for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaven. Irfan, my next question is for you. The Australia-India Business Council has 6 chapters across Australia. What are the sectors and industries most represented in the council, and what sectors do you see having the most interest in engaging with Karnataka?
Thank you, Harriet. Thank you for having me here. Great to be back again in Bangalore. In less than 2 weeks, I was here 2 weeks back, bringing another delegation to South India. And one of the things at AIBC, which stands for Australia-India Business Council, which is the leading bilateral industry body based in Australia, a sister body of Indo-Australia Chamber, which was set up about 36 years back by both the Prime Minister, 37 years, I suppose, by both the Prime Ministers, Rajiv Gandhi and Bob Hawke, which continues to be the leading body, the preeminent body for the government as well, to facilitate trade investment and business-to-business connects, and again, create those people-to-people linkages. Now, ever since the ECTA agreement, which is the early free trade agreement that's been put in place since end of 2022, we've seen an increased interest, aspiration, but also more runs on the board, and that's something which we are proud of and to be part to facilitate as well. Now, one of the things which really underpins what AIBC is driving, it's kind of threefold. One is around advocacy, partnering with the government to do outreach programs to really talk about the opportunities broader at a top-line sectors, micro-sectors levels, but also then take it forward, facilitate targeted delegations, trade business delegations, where we believe that they are ready to scale between Australia and India. And this is on the grounds where we see complementarity, which is a term we are using, which just stands for where we look for opportunities where Indian market has got what Australia needs, Australian companies need, Australian industries need, and vice versa, where Australia has got what India needs. Classic example is Australia's got amazing amount of critical minerals, which are required for whether it's semiconductor or manufacturing, all those sectors that India is really growing at a enormous space, and that it needs Australia. But also, some great technology in Australia, which as a market we are limited by our size in Australia, and India is a great partnering nation to scale, commercialize scale, not only to service Indian market, but also other global markets, especially Middle East, Central Asia, Africa, and Europe as well. So that's something which we are looking at, and we facilitate these trade delegations. I'm pleased that this is probably the third or fourth delegation in the last 6 to 8 months that we have facilitated between Karnataka and Australia as well. We had a very successful startup delegation, Bangalore being the startup capital of the world, which is what I strongly believe. With startup tech innovation, we've curated a delegation to Australia in March last year, which again we had followed through, where about 4 of these startups all around these sectors, which I'll talk about, have been launched there as well, and now they are scaling within Australia. And similarly, we've hosted a large energy delegation of government and industry late last year, and now we are seeing the fruits. Some of the projects are in the pilot scale mode, so which is phenomenal to see the traction. And recently, just last week, we hosted education, health education, and skill development program, and that's another huge sector. We see a lot of collaboration, and I'm a strong believer that South has got a lot to offer. The southern states, of course, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, all of them on their own are racing up to $1 trillion economy. And this is a great partnering relationship that we want to forge between Australian states, Victoria, New South Wales, all these states to really leverage these high growth engine states here that we have in South India, and look for complementarity. Some of the sectors that we are seeing a lot of traction within our members and partners, clean energy, so right through the entire gamut, solar PV, green hydrogen, energy storage, to the whole circularity as well, that we are seeing an enormous interest across the whole value chain, and various companies, both sides, are looking to facilitate. Agri and food tech is another one we are seeing a lot of interest. We're seeing a lot of interest in healthcare, medtech, and pharma, biotech as well, where India is kind of the global engine, where Australia's got the best standards in the world with TGA, where we can have TGA formulated, OTC or generic medicines manufactured here and service the markets around nearby, or the regional markets here. We're also seeing a lot in the defense and space tech, as Hilary mentioned. We've got a lot happening in the skill and education, and that's a phenomenal opportunity that Karnataka has a lot to offer. And we are visiting some of the ITIs and GTDCs as well, where the skill talent that Australia needs, India has got, and obviously providing that bridge is something we are enabling. We're seeing a lot in the startup innovation space, and I believe, in fact, we are looking forward to building some bridges where Karnataka and Bangalore becomes a global scale-up hub, where we are able to plug in our startup ecosystem to have landing pad destination here, and then scale to service this market and this region as well. So there's phenomenal amount of activity happening. But also we believe in SMEs. Of course, we've got several SMEs who have traveled from Australia looking to venture into Karnataka here. We believe SMEs are a whole large segment which is going to power this bilateral trade outcomes. And some of the targets that we have currently, we're doing about 50 billion almost between Australia and India. We want to double that in the next 3 to 5 years, and that will have a lot of role for SMEs to play. So we want to really reach out for SMEs to really help scale between the markets. The way we look at is look at market validation, product fit validation, investor validation, and the scale of validation as well. And that's something which we as an organization with our partners and our members, we facilitate as well. So quite exciting times, and great to be here in Karnataka, and I can see enormous successes in the making in the next short run to the medium run as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Irfan. Vic, you lead the education portfolio across the entire South Asia region for the Australian Trade and Investment Commission. What is unique about education ties between Australia and Karnataka, and what have you seen happening in this space?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Firstly, namaskara everyone. It's wonderful to be here at the Invest Karnataka Summit 2025, and of course I'm sitting with some stalwarts of the trade and investment relationship between Australia and India. I think for Karnataka and for the rest of India and more broadly in South Asia, I think we're exceptionally lucky, and we've heard from our wonderful speakers. We've got the federal government agencies, with the Consul General and myself representing. We've got the state and territories. We've got the business councils and chambers. So there's a lot of vibrancy. There's a lot of support available for Australian companies looking to enter India, Australian institutions looking to come to India. and of course, making sure that we are getting that meaningful investment back into Australia as well. So why Bangalore for education, and what's unique about the, I guess, about the relationship? So to give you a flavor, when we talk about education, we've really got about 4 different priorities that we're working on. Number one is what we're doing in the study in space. So that is, making sure that more and more students choose Australia as their preferred study destination. Michelle represents the state of Victoria, which is the education state, and the beneficiary of probably one of the largest Indian populations. Yeah. So we've got, when we look at the diaspora size, we've got about 1 million people of Indian origin in Australia, and a large proportion of that actually started their life as students. So making sure that we position Australia as that premium destination. We know that there's a lot of competition. I'm not sure whether the Italians before us said it or not, but of course it's Australia, US, and UK that still remain very dominant, but then we've got Germany, we've got Ireland, we've got Spain, we've got everyone else vying for a position within the Indian ecosystem as well. We do a lot of events in Karnataka. We just had the Festival of Australia in Bangalore a couple of months ago. That's making sure that we are really showcasing the best that Australia has to offer by way of agri, produce, and education. And we'll continue to do a lot more of that in the state and in the city. The second most exciting bit is what we're doing in what we call the study with space. Now, India has gone through a phenomenal change with the NEP. So you'll hear a lot about the gross enrollment ratio and India's ambition to get that to 50%. There's a lot of millions and billions attached to it, but when you actually break it down, India needs 14 new universities each week to meet that demand. And I think Karnataka is front and center in terms of what we're doing in that space. We've got a number of exciting, what we call transnational education partnerships live. There's a very strong education ecosystem over here, and we're looking to double those partnerships in the next few years. Branch campuses, sitting on a panel with the British Council last week. It was, I'm extremely proud. I didn't do much for it, but I'm extremely proud when I can say Deakin University and University of Wollongong were the first to set up a campus in India. And we liken it to the Ashes because, you've got Southampton, but Australia's still leading. But then we've got Western Sydney that's announced as well. So it's definitely hotting up, but it is the World Cup in terms of international branch campuses opening up. And definitely no announcements as yet. I'm sure there'll be some coming soon. But, Karnataka, Bangalore especially, that link between industry and academia is going to be a key place where we look at more and more options for students to study an Australian education in India. The third is around skills. And again, Karnataka remains one of the key places for us when we look at skills demand. India has the ambition to be the skilling capital. Everyone's touched on the skills aspect in their introduction. So it's something that we continue to do in terms of developing Australia as the natural partner or natural skilling partner for India. The fourth is around EdTech. I think when I first moved to Bangalore, someone said that if you throw a stone, you're likely to hit a tech founder. I think that's still the case. In fact, I think I'm living in the apartment which is owned by one of the tech founders, so I'm told. But, EdTech, again, is something that we continue to invest in. All in all kind of, leads back to Bangalore and the vibrant ecosystem. Michelle, you touched on the people-to-people links as well. I think that was probably my primary choice to choose Bangalore or Karnataka as my home for the next 3 years, is for that people-to-people links.
Thank you, Vic, and great to hear that people-to-people links are a story throughout the panel. Hilary, a few of our panellists have mentioned the Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, which is now 2 years old. What changes have we seen in trade and investment between our two countries since the agreement was signed?
Thank you, Harriet. Before I answer that question, I'm going to ask a question of the audience because this room is full. I would like to know of those sitting before me, who's been to Australia? Can you put up your hand? See, there's a few here. Okay, I guess that's about 5%. Good, okay, that means there's a lot more people to travel in the future. So on trade agreements, my points here are pretty simple. India's trade with the world in the last 5 years in terms of exports has gone up by about 35%. India's exports to Australia in that time have gone up 66%. So we see our trade increasing. The role the trade agreement plays in that is quite clear-cut. Yes, it is government saying to one another, we have a good and strong relationship, we're telling our businesses to do more, but what it means when it comes to commercial opportunities and impact is this. So India's goods exports to Australia, about 80% of those are industrials, pharmaceuticals, things you can hold. About 15% is petrochemicals, and about 5% is agricultural products, including Karnataka's wonderful coffee. All of those goods will enter Australia without any tariffs at all, now and completely by 2026. So that means that if you're exporting, Australia is a great place to export to. And of course, because trade agreements go in both directions, we're also seeing more Australian products here, Australian products on the shelves in supermarkets in Bengaluru. Those kind of commitments are very significant. The other part of a trade agreement is the services side, which is people. And so some of the pieces that we have in place between Australia and India that really drive engagement in this part of India is post-study work rights. In Australia, if you study and you have the ability to work, means that ability to translate your degree into job-ready skills is something that we think is really valuable, and we know it's really welcomed. We also encourage our professional bodies to talk to one another. So we want our Nurses Association to talk to the Indian Nurses Association. Engineers, lawyers, professional recognitions and skills like that are driven by professional associations. Our government is working hard to encourage those associations to talk to each other. So those kind of pieces of architecture make a real difference to doing business. What we're doing now is hoping to take our current agreement and essentially expand it. So both governments are working on that process and looking for a very good outcome, but all by way of saying, I think Australia is investing in its relationship with India, and trade is one part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. Michelle, you have a unique perspective. You previously, prior to working for the Victorian state government, you worked for the Australian government. What is the value of state-to-state cooperation rather than, we've heard about trade agreements at the national level. What's the value of state-to-state cooperation?
Great. Thank you. First of all, I was smiling at Hilary's comments about the coffee, because for those of you who've been to Melbourne, we run on coffee. It's very much part of our daily culture there, and we're quite alarmed at the world shortage of coffee. Not a lot of people, I was just talking, as I said, I met up with the founder of S'mores yesterday, that not a lot of people actually know what a great grower of coffee this part of the world is. So I'm depending on you guys to fill in that gap of rising coffee prices for us. I also, again, I'm touching on that and how few people in the room here have actually been to Australia. It goes the other way with South India. People just think India is one place and they don't understand the complexity of it. I was really pleased in the last couple of weeks. There was a massive feature in the national newspapers, the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, which was just about South India, largely centred around Karnataka. So this really is the moment to get to know one another better. And our governments have been trying to do that for quite some time. I've mentioned we've been here now for 20 years as a state government. And really the role if we have in relation to the governments is both knowledge sharing, but primarily enabling business. That's why we're here. So I'm going to talk about, first of all, one of the really good programs we did with Karnataka government, and it is the only government we've invested in to do this with, was something funded by us called the Victoria-India Government Exchange. And we sent up 6 senior bureaucrats, 2019. They were across areas covering, coincided with the Tech Summit, but coincided with areas like justice, education. I think there might have been infrastructure and sort of business, but really to get one another to understand one another's systems better. An area we would really like to work more with Karnataka in and to support you is construction and demolition waste. You're building so much. We have one of the world's best programs in terms of recycling that waste. But in terms of enabling business and really, as I said, I've got the great advantage of having time here is watching how things evolve over time. So I was thinking to a relationship that La Trobe University now has with Bangalore Bio-Innovation Centre, of which we're quite sad about that fire a few weeks ago, but we've all been in contact and know that's going okay. That started off in 2018 when our Premier visited and Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw introduced them to that centre. Then we, the government, funded a program called MedTech Actuator. It's one of our startup hubs out of Melbourne who came and delivered their program, took some of the graduates of that program onto other markets, including Australia, that we work in. From there, we introduced them to La Trobe University. La Trobe saw it and just went, wow, we can learn so much from this centre. There's so much we can do together. There's so much we want to replicate in what you're doing. And so that has been signed in front of the Federal Ministers for Education, actually. And I think what's great about that, if I look at it over time, is we've seen changes of government here, we've seen changes of vice-chancellors in La Trobe universities, and we've seen change of CEO at Bangalore Bio-Innovation Centre, but that is a deep enough arrangement that it will endure and we will see great results come out of it.
Thank you, Michelle. On the education theme, back to Vic. The Australia-India Future Skills Initiative is a 4-year program aimed at bringing Australian skills training organisations to India. Can you tell us a little bit more about that program and what are the opportunities for Karnataka through that program?
No, absolutely, thank you. Harry, as I mentioned before as well, so skills is definitely one of the pillars that we are focusing on. And this particular program is a priority program for us. The Future Skills Initiative, it's funded by the Australian government. It aims to see how Australia can help feed into India's skilling agenda. We know India's ambition to be a skills capital of the world. And really, Australia has some of the best skilling, globally. If you look at some of our, systems such as the TAFE, which is a vocational education system, it is the envy of the entire world. But skilling goes beyond just what we're doing in the vocational space. And I think for us, what we're trying to achieve with the, with the Future Skills Initiative is to try and find those real tangible opportunities for Australian skilling providers to help India with its skilling agenda. A small example that I'll use is we've got a company called Q Control out of Canberra. They provide quantum training out of the box. We've just had the Tamil Nadu government adopt quantum training across the board for all their technical colleges. So some really kind of niche pockets where Australia can really help feed into India's skilling agenda. We obviously doing a multitude of things around uncovering those opportunities, but from a state perspective, I think where we're starting to find some real traction is a definition of what skills are actually required. We have these wonderful stats about 1 in 5 people of working age will be of Indian origin. India's ambition to be the skilling capital and all these wonderful figures that go along with it. But I think what was missing, and this is where we're starting to see the shift, is a lot of states undertaking skills surveys and actually defining that need to say, okay, right, we need 5,000 certificate 4 in training and assessment. We need 5,000, certified engineers or whatever it may be. So I think that's where I think the opportunity for Karnataka is going to be really strong. We're already having multiple conversations with the state, but also, with, as Gaven mentioned, with the GCCs as well. There's a huge skilling agenda for industry over here. And for us, it's about making sure that we are finding those opportunities, taking them back to the sector in Australia, and really, having them come over or deliver those skills at scale in India.
Thanks, Vic. We've spoken a lot about people-to-people links, and I want to talk about that a little bit further. Irfan, the Indian diaspora in Australia is the fastest growing large diaspora community and 4% of Australia's population. What role do the Indian diaspora have in the relationship between Australia and India, and particularly in that business relationship and for AIBC and business councils?
Thank you, Harriet. I think this is very pertinent and something which all of you need to realize, where there is obviously this potential and what is also accelerating delivering the outcomes for these potential, and that there's a strong role for the Indian diaspora to play, essentially to build that people-to-people linkages, the connects for delivering the business-to-business outcome. And former president did call out that the Indian diaspora is the living bridge to facilitate that connection, those cultural bonds, but also understanding the dynamics of business both sides, how to do business in Australia and how do we do business in India. I mean, my personal journey as well, I come from a third generation of one of the largest industrial and education industry-focused families out of Kerala, but have worked and lived and worked and done business across southern states myself in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Telangana, and I know the potential. I've lived in the north as well. And you know, there are instances when we see these opportunities come through and we leverage our network, both here and Australia, and in our parlance we use the term, you know, connecting the dots. So helping the diaspora can help connect the dots, and then again, you know, in our thing, lining up the ducks as well, so that we can work on delivering some of the outcomes. And another, you know, our lingo we use is we look for some of those low-hanging fruit where this diaspora can help facilitate, bridge those connections, bridge those opportunities, and help accelerate. I mean, the dynamics of business is entirely different in Australia and in India. India is a relationship-based, long-term, you know, relationship-based, you know, market to engage, whereas Australia's traditional other trade partners, our neighboring country, it's been very transactional. So again, bridging that cultural business relationship and enabling outcomes, the diaspora has a strong role to play. And I want to quote an example again. We have one of the business, and I'll take the liberty of someone who's been in Australia, now leads a third generation Australian business who's taken over, now is driving it to scale globally. But he's realized the potential that to scale globally, go beyond Australia, needs to have India as a partner. Australia has got a strong focus on you know, a future made in Australia. We are investing heavily in Australian business, Australian manufacturing, but I'm a strong believer for us to have that growth in Australia, we need to partner it with India and have these kinds of stories. And here again, they moved their first manufacturing to North India and to Manesar, but I believe because of our networks, there's a huge potential, especially the sector he is involved in, the automotive industry, manufacturing. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, this southern part has a lot to offer, and we've got him here. We are working through with you know, the government and the agencies to see the right kind of you know, access and outcomes are delivered, and hence we can build a global story here, an Australian India global story, and that's what we're trying to foster more and more. So I feel there's a strong role. I want to also give a plug to my friend Tim and the other department, Center for Australia-India Relations, which is another leading body set up by Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Australian government, where we have a lot of focus on ensuring that we are able to leverage the strong diaspora, which is again on the top boards to top CEOs in Australia as well, where we want to bring them and connect them back as well, and various boards from Australia to come and connect with what's happening in India. And I'm a strong believer. I think Hilary was trying to gauge how many have visited Australia, and similarly we try and you know, help Australian businesses and leaders to also come to India to see the growth, what is being experienced, and all along Indian diaspora and Indian diaspora leaders are playing a major role. So I see this diaspora's business leaders to play a significant role in enabling and play a true catalyst role in accelerating the trade outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Irfan. And we'll have one last question before we'll open it up to the audience. Gaven, beyond the big end of town, with your Indo-Australia Chamber of Commerce hat on, what are the opportunities for small to medium enterprises in the Australia-India relationship? And how can IACC help those businesses?
Thanks, Harriet. That's a good question. Today, when you really look at it, and I think so Hilary mentioned it, Michelle mentioned it, and all our speakers did mention, the opportunity is both ways. It's just not one way Australian business is coming into India, it's also the other way around. And I'll give you an example. If you look at the small and medium-sized businesses in Australia, just in the IT space, your total addressable market today is $450 billion. And the Indian companies have not even scratched the surface on that. That's a huge opportunity. We need to start investing there. And when you say investing, it's not about just moving people and technology there, you need to stay invested in terms of really opening shop. So I can speak on behalf of some of the service providers that are here in India, be it the TCS, the Infosys, and Cognizance of the world. They've started to de-risk the Western influence that they have on their balance sheet by investing in Australia. They're de-risking their balance sheet. And they're using this word very strongly today. So that is one part of it. You look at the smaller pieces, which is the startup and the scale-up ecosystem. That's a massive opportunity for them to stay invested. And I think so, Hilary did bring up something. It's a tariff-friendly investment that you have in Australia. Today, tariff is becoming one of the most talked about words, right? Let's not go down that path. But when you have a tariff-friendly investment opportunity in Australia, take it from me, any startup ecosystem can actually use this as gold dust. And I have one example. India is not just moving your startups out of Bangalore. So the example that I want to quote is, we had a company called Zetify out of Israel. They were into the microsatellite business. The challenge that we have in Australia is, from a demography standpoint, we are 5 times the size of India, right? But probably a few percentage in terms of the population. But a lot of the population is spread around the coast, but we still have population in the interiors of Australia. So getting them to be connected was an absolute challenge. So Telstra decided that we will take 3 years to get them connected on the 5G network. We got this company Zetify, incubated them in India, and take it from me, we were able to connect 98% of the landmass in 6 months. So this is how you do it. The opportunity is massive. The question is, how relevant are you when you want to stay invested? And vice versa. I think so Karnataka has been in the forefront of putting together the GCC policy. Especially the minister recently mentioned about the global tech centers that they want to start. There are loads of companies in Australia who actually want to come and plug and play and open their GTCs or GCCs out of India, or for that matter in Bangalore. All that we need to do is market them better. So I'm really looking forward to some of our friends who are in the large enterprise to play that role, because as a large enterprise, you need to be that business incubator for our businesses, both within India, going into Australia, and vice versa. It's not going to happen just one way. It's not a one-way street. It's both ways. So that's my answer in terms of the potential that we have. Thank you.
Can I just add something to that? One of the sectors that I started with when I came to Bangalore was our critical and enabling technologies. And I think the big thing was, again, as you're saying, it's India and Australia collaborating together for the world. And I think that's probably the big one, and that's where the opportunity in Bangalore is ripe.
Thanks Vic, and thanks Gaven. Before we open it up to the audience, does any final words from our panelists? Wonderful. I think we have time for 2 questions, maybe 3. Perhaps the man standing, we can go to you first.
Very good morning, Your Excellency. Thanks for a wonderful presentation. This is Professor Cook, CEO of K&K Renewables. We are working on the Napier graphs and CNG and hydrogen, which just now some of the learned speakers spoke. We are very keen to work in your country, and as we have the technology to work, and it's a green project. So if you give us some time, we would like to discuss with you. Thank you.
And perhaps let's ask
Good morning to you. It was a nice panel discussion. My question to Mr. Irfan Malik. I am Naved Akhtar from Bengaluru Petro. Sir, we are the leading lubricant manufacturers in India and producing all type of automobile and industrial oils in a very big way. We have 2 manufacturing facilities in India, in Chennai and Mumbai. So we want to have some technical collaboration with some Australian companies, sir. So since we are in specialty lubricants, specialty oils, and we want to have some technical collaboration as well as joint venture also. Can you just throw some light on that, sir? How can we proceed for that?
Well,
Thank you so much.
I'm supposed to talk about transition to clean energy, but I'll take that. Definitely, there is, at least for the next 10, 15 years, there is a huge market for what you're looking at. In fact, I was surprised that petrocarbon products are one of the top in the bilateral trade as well. I mean, it's again, we'll love to know more specifically about what market. I mean, the thumb rule I look at is, when I look at a company ready to scale to Australia, I look at, are you already servicing any other Western market or Middle East? Yeah, not yet. So obviously that's where I look at, do you have a scale-up international validation? And then we look for a comparative market or industry partner who we can match, and then we see what the market opportunity is. So you're doing off Africa. So we just want to look at what is the market segment you're trying to address, and then we find the right partner who can work. Obviously, if it's a growing market, then you want to evaluate. I mean, again, it's a fit for purpose. As I said, we are moving a lot towards EV and non-petrocarbon related products. But as I said, another 10, 15 years, definitely there's a huge market. We'll be happy to connect. I can think of some people straight away out the back of mind. Some of our members, I would be happy to connect. One thing, just taking a cue, where you can think, and even Gaven mentioned about as well, you want to validate your product for market fit for Australia. And sometimes it could be a bit of a lateral thinking. And I want to quote an example of a medtech company, which is from Bangalore. They were planning to go to Middle East, natural market to service in the healthcare medtech space. And we looked at the product. It had a great market fit for Australia, though Australian market size is not huge. But was one we wanted to validate in a Western market. And Australia is a great Western market to validate because of the high quality standards. And we were able to get them to launch into Australia, and then we launched them into Middle East after that. And that just gave them a nearly 100% growth in terms of valuation and premium that they could position themselves. So obviously that's another opportunity for you to look at as well from a scaling perspective. So if you are servicing sectors like mining and oil and gas, that's something we can look at it.
And I think that's probably all we have time for. One last question at the front.
Yeah, hi. My name is Satish Kota. I run an international trade platform. Last year, I'm going on the data itself. Last year's Australian imports are about 287 billion. And India's exports is about 6.5, 7 billion. That's about 2.5, 3%. What can be done to increase this? ACTA is open, but still a lot of opportunities are available. Still the number is too small. How can we increase it?
It's a really good question. I think in part I have answered that to some extent because if there are no tariffs on what you are exporting from India to Australia, then the next step is finding the commercial partner here and the commercial partner in Australia that want to facilitate that activity, that say, great, I can import my products more cheaply, this is the market for me. And so that's a place where business chambers play a really important role, connecting where we know there are communities, whether it's in Melbourne. We also have our New South Wales government representative here, Melanie. So I think it's that ecosystem. You need the settings in place. You need government-to-government undertakings. We have that. We've seen trade increase, so we know there is interest, whether it's industry or consumers in both directions. And then we need our business chambers and our businesses to work together. So all of those pieces come together to move things forward. But they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, if I can add to that, this is a specific question we discussed in our strategy session. We've got 50 billion. How do we get to 100 billion? How do we dissect this? And the way we have kind of coined this whole approach is we are looking at in three kind of pillars. One is, and all underpinned by the free trade agreement. We are looking at what is the first pillar where we already are trading between Australia and India, and how can we increase those segments at a HSN code level. So sector at the HSN code level, we see these are the products that we are doing already trade, whatever, 10, 20 billion. Of course, commodity and products are the bigger chunk rather than service. So we dissect that and see how can we do more of that. Who are the bigger players who can do a lot more of the existing trade products, which because of the free trade, we can do more. That's the first pillar. Second is where the free trade is open opportunity and we are not doing trade at all. So we are trying to find the players, the right industry partners, both sides, who can then connect the dots. One example is the cotton textile industry, where we could do more. We were doing only little, and now we have opened up. There's a quota. We are trying to influence that the quota is increased because there's a huge demand for Australian cotton and Australian wool here for the entire textile industry. So that's one example we are looking at where we could do more. And then the third the pillar is the new sunrise sectors where we have traditionally not done at all. And because of this free trade agreement, we can do a lot more. Solar PV, right from the solar cell. I mean, the world's best solar cell. The first cell came from Australia, UNSW. It was scaled to China. This time, the latest solar cell is in UNSW in Sydney. We want to scale that to Australia, and we want to look at partners here in South India who can leverage Australian technology, do the technology transfer, but scale it here. And we want to do more of that. So entire clean energy, solar PV, circularity, sustainability sector is a huge sector where we can do a lot more, and we are trying to find the right partners that we could connect and do more. And we want to work with, India's got, I mean, we probably, in Australia, we still have a few industry bodies there, like our Business Council, a chamber. But in India, you've got FICCI, CII, and the whole export organizations around. We want to partner with them on a specific sector, micro sector, and even at HS and Core, where we can leverage the free trade agreements. All are underpinned by the free trade agreement. We're looking at opportunities. And we want to get some big runs on the board, but also sustainable runs on the board as well. Thank you.
I think I just wanted to add to that as well. It sounds like you've got a very interesting platform, but for those of you who are looking across the Australia-India relationship, just remember that Australia is a services-driven economy. I would say 80% of the work that we're doing with Karnataka is both ways, is services-driven. So you've got to make sure when you're looking at statistics, just double check that you're not just picking up the good statistics and that you're also across what's happening with movement of services both ways as well.
Alrighty, thank you all very much, and thank you very much for to all our panellists for being so generous with your time today. Thank you to the audience for coming to learn more about Australia and Karnataka. This is it for today's panel, but we look forward to seeing you all again next time. Thank you.